Welcome everybody to the third of our four-part workshop series, Mindfulness Practice for the Legal Community during COVID-19. My name is Tony Verona. I have the honor of serving as the Dean of the University of Miami School of Law. And my colleague, Professor Scott Rogers, and I are coming to you from Miami. We're so very glad that these workshops have been helpful to you. We've been receiving very positive feedback from all over the country, and we're really delighted that this workshop series, thanks to Professor Rogers, is providing such a service at what is a difficult time. Session 3, today's session, is body scan, relaxing with the breath and awareness of the body and suggestions for daily practice. Once again, as with the first two sessions, I will be monitoring the Q&A and will put together a couple of questions to ask Scott at the very end of our session. So Scott, please take it away.
Thank you, Dean Verona. It's nice to be together. Welcome, everyone. Let's begin with a short 2-minute breath awareness practice, lightly guided to settle in. Bringing ourselves into a posture that is upright and stable. As we lower or close our eyes, whichever you prefer, resting attention on the sensations of this body, this precious body, in this moment, as we breathe. Aware of the sensations of where your bottom may make contact with the seat beneath you. Your hands resting one in the other on your lap. Of the breath flowing through the body and taking 3 slower, deeper breaths. A little slower, a little deeper as we breathe in. And out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. And then allowing the mind to rest with the natural state of the breath, whatever that may be, and of this body through which the breath flows, without having to really do anything. And when you're ready in the next moment or two, to lift the gaze, open the eyes. So as a brief recap, in our first session, we learned a very popular mindfulness exercise known as focused attention. It's the one that most people think of when they think of a mindfulness meditation practice. It involves focusing attention on an object like the breath. And when one realizes that the mind has wandered, returning attention to the object, to the breath. It's a practice that people look to often because it can be relaxing, can help to reduce stress, and indeed, stabilizing attention around an object like the breath can be calming. And as we explored in that first session, there's even more. There's seeing more clearly what's arising in the moments of our life, what's happening, to appreciate it with greater clarity, less encumbered by distraction. William James, the philosopher and psychologist, he understood this when 100 years ago plus, he wrote the faculty of bringing a wandering attention back again and again and again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. And this practice points us in that direction. Last week, we learned about the loving kindness practice, where through the recitation of phrases like, may I be happy, may I be safe, may you be happy, may you be safe, we cultivate a more open-hearted and interconnected way of being in relationship to ourselves and each other. And we learned a little bit about the science and the research that suggests that these practices may be helpful for enhancing focus and concentration through changes to the structure and function of the brain, enhancing compassion, enriching our capacity to skillfully manage emotions and to improve our physical health. These are qualities and capacities that we can train, and it is through these practices, as one vehicle of many, that we do just that. Now, as you may have noticed, these sessions have been structured in a certain way. We begin, as we did today and the previous weeks, with a short guided practice. And then we spend the better part of the first half with the sharing of information. The last half is largely a period of practice. And this is done to remind us of the importance of practice. It's a very interesting thing that maybe you can relate to, where people will spend hours and hours reading book after book, learning about mindfulness and mindfulness practices and how to practice, and find great insight and inspiration from them. And yet, when it comes to sitting and practicing for 5 or 10 minutes a few times a week, find that to be a daunting enterprise. Thoughts like, I don't have the time, or I can't do this. And deep down, we know that more often than not, or often enough, there is time. And we really can't do these practices wrong, but we can have the thought that I can't do this, I'm doing this wrong. And one of the wonderful things about the mindfulness practices are that they help us see more clearly into the stories that we are telling ourselves. Being lost in thought, caught up in the stories and identifying with them that we tell ourselves again and again, these can exacerbate feelings of stress and anxiety and can have a negative impact on our mood. And we in the legal profession may be especially prone to this, right? Where we are good at anticipating problems. We are willing to jump into the competitive and adversarial terrain that many don't wish to get into. And we care a lot about the quality of our work, and we can tend to be a bit perfectionistic. And these are qualities that serve our clients very well, and they enrich our capacity to be at the top of our game, an expert at what we do. They also can be a liability if we're not able to modulate them, and if they bleed into our personal lives. Chronically anticipating problems can exacerbate and increase anxiety. Looking around every corner for the next threat and shoe to drop can exacerbate feelings of fear and dread and create disconnection between us and others. And to be endeavoring to get it perfect can not only deplete us of an awful lot of energy that's much needed, but can also affect our mood profoundly. Now, today's practice is the body scan, which directs our attention to, we could say, the source underlying so many of these maladies, which we are unfamiliar with and or we ignore at our peril. So the body scan points and directs our attention to the body proper. Now, this is an interesting nuance from the focused attention practice, for which it shares a lot in common. So it's worth taking a moment to explore this. With the focused attention practice, we're resting our attention on one object, and when the mind wanders, we're sort of vigilant to notice that wandering. With the body scan, as you'll see when we do our practice in a little bit, we are primarily interested in attending to the sensations arising and changing and shifting in the body. And in doing so, we might just learn a little bit more fully how to come to our senses. Jack Kornfield, a very important and wonderful mindfulness teacher, likes to quote from a short story by James Joyce called The Painful Case, in which he writes that Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. And it may well be the case that we in the law and in the legal profession, we're so drawn into the intellectual, we spend so much time engaged in abstract thinking, we must, because it's our job, is engage in mental time travel, that we perhaps could use a little bit of nudging in the direction of this body. So in a few minutes, when we do a body scan practice, we will direct our attention to an object. It probably will begin with the left foot. And we will attend to the sensations of that object. And then a few moments later, we'll move on to another object in the body, another place, like the ankle. Now, so that you have a bigger picture understanding of why this might be useful, because you might be saying, attending to the sensations in the body, why would I do that? That's boring. I may fall asleep. And indeed, this is a practice that many will, when practiced for 30 or 45 minutes, in fact, fall asleep. But while we can use it for that objective as a mindfulness practice, it's intended to help us fall awake. And so I'll share with you an insight or two from this practice. And these can be best understood by zeroing in on an instruction that's implicit in other practices, but explicit in this one, which is, and when you notice those sensations and you're resting your attention on them, note, are they pleasant, unpleasant, or neither? And then shortly thereafter, we move on. Now, why might this be important? One reason is because of our tendency in life to quickly react to moments that are unpleasant by pushing away, and moments that are pleasant by grasping, and moments that are neutral by looking for something else more stimulating or interesting. Often these are instinctual, automatic reactions, and they tend to, at times, be unhelpful, counterproductive, and even consequential in ways that we wish we could have done them differently. And so this practice is an exercise in equanimity, in patience, in developing resilience. We practice not being so reactive and learning to remain engaged and observant even when the moment turns unpleasant, as they do in life, as they do in the practice of law. Can we show up for those moments? We practice moving on, letting go when the moment is pleasant and we would perhaps wish to stay there, when what's called for is to move on. And we linger a little longer than we might otherwise be inclined when feeling bored or restless, because maybe the action's about to happen and being there for it matters. After all, if we cannot bear such moments, we may never know what we're missing or the ways that our overreactions get in the way of what's most useful, and sometimes it's doing nothing. By attending to the body, in this way, we appreciate that there is a body. There is a body, habeas corpus, and therein lies the prospect for freedom. Often attributed to Viktor Frankl is this insight that between stimulus and response, between what's happening, the way the moment is, whether it's in the body or around us, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And within that space is the power to choose our response. And therein lies our growth and freedom to choose our response. So, with that in mind, let's turn our attention to the body in practice. So we bring ourselves into a posture that's upright and stable. Lowering or closing the eyes, whichever you prefer. Resting attention on the sensations of this body. Sitting in this moment as we breathe. This body knows only this moment. These sensations are arising here, now. This mind can move in many places as we bring our mind more fully to the sensations of our body. We arrive a little bit more fully in this moment. Aware of where you're making contact with the chair or the cushion or whatever you're sitting in. If you're sitting, aware of your hands making contact with one another, the sensations of these fingers and fingertips. All of these sensations are continually being fed up to be processed by the brain, but by shining the flashlight of your attention in their direction, we become even more aware of what's taking place. As we breathe, aware of our feet making contact with the ground or our shoes. And because it can be helpful for feeling a little more settled in the body and mind, we take 3 slower, deeper breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. You may use, of course, your own tempo and rhythm. It's a little bit slower, a little bit deeper, a little bit fuller as we breathe in and out. In and out. Aware of the sensations arising in and around the body from head to toe, side to side, belly to back as we breathe. And directing attention to the sensations arising in and around our left foot. The toes touching one another, the top of the foot or bottom of the foot making contact with cloth or shoe. The heel. These sensations may be pleasant, unpleasant, neither. They may be challenging to even notice or quite palpable. We're shining the flashlight of attention without any agenda other than to observe. As we shift our attention to the ankle and up to the lower part of the left leg, the shin, the calf, resting attention here as we breathe. Shifting attention to the knee, the outer side of the knee, the underside, a sense of the joint, and of any sensations arising here, now. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. not good or bad, but at a deeper level, their fundamental nature, how they are experienced before the story, pleasant, unpleasant. And should your mind wander, as it will, and you realize it from time, to gently bring your attention back to wherever we are in the body as we move to the thigh. Attending to the sensations in and around the left thigh, a sense of the muscle and the mass where it makes contact with cloth or chair. Allowing this moment to be as it is and being here for this moment as it is. As a sense of the left leg recedes into the background of awareness as we direct our attention to the right foot, resting here. There's nothing we're supposed to feel or not supposed to be a certain way, and we're not interested in changing it. We're witnessing, and we're cultivating the capacity to be attentive and to gather information, which is a skill we can develop. Tending to the ankle, the shin, the calf, the knee, resting attention here, open to whatever we notice, and noting as we move to the right thigh, pleasant, unpleasant, neither, and the way it may change and shift moment by moment. Moving to the buttocks, the groin, the hips, the genitals, attending to this part of the body, resting. There's nothing to figure out or even to seek out. Shining the flashlight of your own brilliant attentional capacity on purpose. What's there to be noticed will be realized, as so much of what's arising in life is there to be realized without having to try so hard. Moving into the lower torso, the belly, a sense of the belly expanding and softening, making contact with cloth, perhaps a feeling of hunger or fullness, a tightness. A sense of the internal organs, the intestines, the kidneys, the liver, the rib cage, expanding and softening with each breath, of the lungs drawing in and releasing air, and of this heart nestled within, perhaps sensing the beating, the pulsing, or knowing it's there and interested in what one might observe as we breathe. The musculature of the lower back and upper back, the shoulders, a tension, a tightness, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, noticing as an end in itself. And in time, a means to a much larger opportunity than we often realize is before us. The left shoulder, an arm, elbow, palm, hand, fingers, a sense of this part of the body. Tingling, numbness in the fingertips, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and we move up the arm over to the right side and down, elbow, forearm, palm, hand, fingers, pleasant, unpleasant, aware. Moving up to the neck, the sensations in and around the neck, the lower jaw, chin, the upper jaw, tension, tightness, aware. pleasant, unpleasant, aware. The tongue, the lips, the nostrils, sense of the sinus cavities, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Of the eyes, sensations of the eyes resting in their sockets, the cheeks, sense of the air maybe making contact with the skin, the temples, the ears, the scalp, forehead, hair. Aware of this head and the sensations arising in and around the head, the neck, the arms, the hands, shoulders, the torso, the buttocks, the legs, the feet. Aware of this body, this precious body, living and breathing in this moment, this precious moment, from head to toes, side to side, belly to back. And when you're ready in the next moment or two, with an awareness of doing so, lifting the gaze, opening the eyes.
Beautiful practice, Scott. There are two questions that I thought I would share with you. One from our Q&A application from Douglas, and then another that I thought of in seeing that many of our attendees are law students from all over the country. So the first question from Douglas has to do with the body scan meditation that you just led us in. And he asks, do you visualize the body part? So in other words, when you are going through the body scan, does it help to actually visualize it as you bring it to mind? And then the other question that I could give you now so that you could think about it and answer it before we conclude this session is that law students in particular, like lawyers and law professors, paralegals, and everybody else in the legal profession, as you pointed out earlier in this session, we pursue perfection. And one form of that perfectionism is the pursuit of certainty and certitude. And with law students in particular, there's so much uncertainty right now. How am I going to do on an online final exam? What is my transcript going to look like at the end of this semester? How is it that, for 3Ls, how is it that I'm going to be able to study for the bar and pass it with so much uncertainty around even when the bar will be offered and how? What about jobs? There's so much uncertainty there. So how does mindfulness practice allow us to cope with uncertainty, with the lack of certitude that we as legal professionals are always pursuing?
All right, thank you for those questions. And so Douglas, it's a wonderful question, and there's really different ways of responding. So here's one approach that I hope you find helpful. It is a practice in paying attention to the sensations in the body. And so you were astute to inquire whether visualizing that part of the body would be consistent with that. It certainly can be consistent with a body scan practice from a broader perspective. To visualize it in the mind is to, in fact, visualize it in the mind. That's mental activity. The physical sensations in the body are more properly reserved for sensations in the body. And this is a practice in attending to the sensations in the body, which sometimes can be subtle and which oftentimes are signals that we miss. So not ideally, but bear in mind, so that we can bear in body, that attending to the sensations and looking out for them. And this is a practice. Even a part of the brain called the insula seems to be relevant to picking up on those signals, the gut feelings, etc. And these practices have been found to thicken perhaps that region of the brain for that purpose, or for other purposes, but to do just that. So the short answer is endeavor to attend to the sensations of the body, and there may not be any: pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Neutral might be, I don't even notice anything. That's okay. Sometimes we don't notice something, and then staying there with it might be quite useful. But if you find that visualizing along the way helps you stay there so that you might sense a little bit more, absolutely. And you really can't do this wrong. But to understand the dynamic is important. As to the second question, which almost relates to the first question, it makes me think, it brings to mind Judge Chris McLilley, a wonderful federal judge who drops in on the Mindfulness and Law course and did so this morning, shared a short practice that she learned from Pema Chodron, a wonderful mindfulness teacher. Drop the story, feel the energy. So there are many ways of attending to uncertainty and trying to be more comfortable in the midst of an uncertain world, especially where the consequences run high, or the story we tell ourselves, it may exacerbate just the extent of those consequences. But whatever that may be, we don't have to figure that out with the mind, although we certainly can do that at different times. The body scan practice and drop the story, feel the energy says in those moments when we feel when we were having all that uncertainty, which is thoughts, anticipating the future, anticipating worst case scenarios. Mark Twain said, I had a great many problems in my life, most of which never happened. So how can we discern a little bit more clearly what to be attentive to and what to really zero in on and what not to? And so as a prerequisite, as a prelude to that, can we notice the story, the oh my gosh, what if, all the things we're all swimming with? And in noticing that story, we have an awareness that there is a story. There is a series of thoughts we're having. And let that be create the momentum to drop into the body. And as she advised today, breathing out, drop the story. Breathing in, feel the energy. There's a lot of energy in those moments of uncertainty. Breathing out, drop the story. Breathing in, feel the energy. And she said as a short form, exhaling, we drop. Inhaling, we feel. And to see how that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but might actually allow us to reside in a place and in a state that allows us to more fully move into those moments and be good to ourselves and effective in the decisions that we make. I hope that that's helpful.
Scott, another excellent question from one of our colleagues in Seattle, Melissa, is this. Is there a variation on the body scan where we express gratitude for each part of our body?
Okay, so that's beautiful. That is one of the wonderful things about the various mindfulness practices, which is that these are pointers which we can draw upon. So in a certain sense, you could have it where just by bringing attention to the breath, for example, at this time in particular, gratitude flourishes. And to feel that and to allow that to be also something that is expressed in the body. We feel it in terms of thoughts that may arise, feelings, and the sensations of the body that open us up in that more open-hearted form. So if it arises, be there for it as part of the experience, and even cultivate it by attending to it and the sensations that it carries with it. If it's a deliberate, like, oh, I want to be great, I want to bring gratitude in this, that's wonderful too, but that would be sort of bringing a gratitude practice into the body scan. But part of what I heard you say was this real brilliant relationship to what can arise when we are more fully present. And in moments of uncertainty, to have to look to gratitude to be helpful, or to have it flow spontaneously is a game changer.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful session, Scott. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for attending and being present with us. We hope that you found this session as helpful as the first two. I think that you did. I certainly found it very, very helpful. We look forward to seeing you next week, and we wish you safety and health. Thank you all very much, and peace. Thank you.